Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's presentation. I'm delighted to be able to introduce you to Enterpryze Mobile One, and what we're going to do is run through the application, not in a huge amount of detail, but give you an overview as to what it is we are trying to achieve. I'm making some assumptions, potentially wrongly, but that most of you are familiar with a lot of the functionality that's contained within Enterpryze already. And in essence, what we're doing here with Enterpryze Mobile One is actually turning that into a mini ERP that's very much cloud-centric. And it's designed for those companies, I guess, that are a little bit smaller than the ones that would traditionally use Business One. And in a lot of instances, we come across opportunities where the customer is looking for something to start with, and then they could potentially grow into. So Enterpryze provides them with a whole ERP solution suited to companies with potentially 3 to 10 or 11 users, that kind of size organization. So as we talked about last Friday, the platform has grown quite considerably. And what we have now is the Enterpryze Micro One solution, which is this single app based solution that really micro organizations can leverage, that uses the same platform, the Enterprise platform. The customers can then either migrate seamlessly or start to leverage Enterprise Mobile One. And that solution is designed for slightly more organized businesses, but not ones that typically want a full-blown ERP solution. So Mobile One, we'll talk about the functionality in that a little bit later. And then the concept here is that we can seamlessly migrate that customer from the Mobile One solution right the way through to the Business One solution, because the underlying technology is SAP Business One. So to give you an idea, the way Mobile One is structured from an architecture perspective is that we build templated Business One databases in the Cloud Control Center, but we've removed the interface of Business One and replaced it with the Enterprise interface. So the customer gets a full cloud experience. They get browser-based and mobile app experience with Business One below it. So every transaction, every customer, everything is leveraging that engine in the background. So when the customer wants to move to Business One, we simply have to enable the client for Business One, and those users can now start to extend the functionality that they need, whether it be production or whether it be more complex financial processing, for example. They can simply turn on the Business One interface through the browser, for example, to leverage that additional functionality. And all of these solutions, I should say, can also leverage our omni-channel solution and the solution I showed last week, Customer One. So we've got a very powerful solution for these small businesses. And I think what we've tried to do is leverage Mobile One for these small businesses so that they can actually sell in an omni-channel experience. So sell in a way through the likes of Shopify and Square, and later to come in about a month's time, Amazon, but also through the Customer One self-service pieces. So we've extended and democratized the solution right out to allow these small businesses, which I guess in some instances are becoming quite sophisticated in their own right, have the ability to do all of this through their browser interface. So what we have ultimately is what we call a third-tier ERP solution, is a simple, scalable solution because it's so simple to use, and with the collateral that we've built, as a customer can onboard themselves ultimately, or indeed you can provide some services around that to assist that customer to import some data, etc. But you'll see from what I show that the interface is simple to use and the data upload is quite simple as well. It is born in the cloud. It is a true multi-tenant application, which means connecting to third-party platforms such as Shopify and Stripe, for example, from a credit card processing perspective, is just literally a 2-minute exercise. It's mobile first, as we know with Enterprise. All of the apps are mobile first. and it leverages all of the different functions that we have listed off there. It is localized for all languages with the premise that we need the support of a partner to assist us with the language translations. But because we're using Business One as the engine for the platform, ultimately each one of those localizations comes as standard out of the box. And then there is zero maintenance and training because it's all managed in this cloud-based environment. So the customer experience doesn't require upgrades every 2 years or any of that, because it's all being managed as a true cloud platform. So with Enterpryze Mobile One, what we in essence have is the whole process from opportunity through to quote and order, the ability to then schedule those tasks with delivery and service calls, create our invoices, take our payments, all the way down to profit and loss and simple financials with procurement and expenses all incorporated. And then we also get to leverage the omni-channel experience, because a lot of these small organizations do want to be able to sell in lots of different ways. And as I mentioned, the Customer One experience, so that they can start to engage with their customers through the Customer One portal. So let me just give you a little look at the solution now, if I can. So as you're familiar, we have the enterprise screen here today. What we've tried to do is build as much collateral as we can to streamline the onboarding experience, both from a training perspective, but also from a setup perspective. So what we have is, for example, a whole series of how-to videos built into the application that show somebody how to do pretty much every task. So every screen has a video built into it. And then the rest of the functionality is pretty standard that you're familiar with within Enterprise today. So if I just want to start, for example, to show how simple the onboarding process is, if you understand that if you are familiar with the Cloud Control Center concept, each one of these databases is templated from the start. So it comes with a simplified chart of accounts. It comes with the settings for your opportunity management built in. And really all we have to do is put in the elements of the setup that are specific to the customer. So here, for example, they're just going to enter in their organization details and import their logo. They're going to be able to manage their users here by inviting the users to this solution and approve them for various different modules. Again, something that's quite simple to do. And we have also built videos to show the user how to do it. In the background, the solution is designed to automatically connect to the next available database in the Cloud Control Center. So what we do is we auto-create batches of SAP templated databases in the Cloud Control Center. And each one of those is sitting empty in that tenant, awaiting Enterprise to connect through to it. So each customer can come on and create a trial account or create their own business account if they want, and automatically connect back into that Business One database in the Cloud Control Center. And because of the way we've structured it, by removing the Business One interface, we're able to host that database at a price of 20 euros per company per month. So it really helps us to reduce the cost of the solution in terms of bringing it out into the market. So now we can start to talk about deploying Enterprise at a price point of about 49 euros per user per month in the market, with very little services to get the organization up and running. And when you see the level of functionality they receive, it's quite powerful at that price point. So all of the various different solutions here you're integrated directly back into the SAP Cloud Control Center. And then we go through the various different settings. So the item matrix, for example, will have our various different expenses already set up, but the user can create new ones and define where they post to in the general ledger, just as you do with the solution that's designed for Business One. In the module settings, we have things like setting expense mileage rates for different users. We have our procurement approvals here with the approval limits and the different levels of approval that you want to set for each user. In the service management side, we have just simple, do you want to close the call upon resolution? And these are just, it gives us the ability to create more of these settings in time based on the demands of customers in different markets. On the delivery side, we get into something that's slightly more complex. And I guess this is because warehouse management and all of that becomes a little bit more complicated in its own right. Here in Mobile One, we work off of the basis of a single warehouse. So whilst you can assign a user to a warehouse in the Business One solution, because we're trying to minimize the scaling of the database in the background, and because we're trying to solution from a support perspective, we try and limit it to only one warehouse. But each driver can have what we call a virtual warehouse, which allows us to assign deliveries to that particular, and for them to be able to manage just the deliveries that have been assigned, and for them not to deliver product, for example, from. We've also built in some functionality here around the ability to auto create deliveries by tend to carry out the same functions at a particular time every single day or week, for example. So if it's a milk delivery company, they're always going to deliver milk at 9 o'clock in the morning, for example, to the same customer. And here we can build all of these preferred times into the delivery scheduling, as well as create reoccurring orders and deliveries in the system. It's one of the nice features that we felt was necessary for small businesses, is the ability to create reoccurring transactions. And that can be for orders, deliveries, invoices, activities, service calls, and indeed quotations as well. On the credit control side, we also have the ability for the user to integrate with Stripe. So through the mobile phone app, they can start to take payments. So it gives them the ability to enable there and then from customers through the credit card. And then on the sales tab, we have the ability for them to set up some default settings. So for example, they may want a default price list on the Sell app, so that when the user is offline, it's not going to be able to see the special pricing, obviously, but it could have a default price list that can be applied until they sync the information back to Business One. And then down here we have the Shopify Setup, and this is a part of the omni-channel experience, because so many of these small businesses want to be able to trade online and do it in a highly efficient way. What we're able to do is very quickly create a Shopify instance. So all you do is create your Shopify account, and then you copy the key and the passwords directly into Enterprise, and then we automatically create a link to the Shopify store. And with Shopify, for example, you can start to sell online for $30 per month. So it means that all of these small businesses can now have a true omni-channel experience through the Shopify setup. We then go into things like emails. So we have the ability for us to automatically send invoices and quotes and orders and service call confirmation through Enterprise itself. And this cuts down again on the setup time that's required. It's very much a default template, which is delivered in the body of the email of the to the customer, and it just allows the user to set up various different templates. So within the templates, you can define within your purchase order, for example, header and footer and content information, or if you're HTML capable, you can also go in and define some and design some changes based on the HTML editor. So it allows us to again cut down on the amount of time that's required to create PDFs and those kind of traditional PLD style documents. Within Enterprise, we've also built the built-in custom fields. And again, you can use this if you're using Business One, but if you don't use Business One and Enterprise as your front end, you can still create user-defined fields for all of these different elements to allow the user to capture additional information themselves. We don't have to create that information in Business One. So if they're not accessing Business One, in order for us to minimize the need to do that, you don't have to map it back into the Business One database if you don't want to. But you can at any stage, and the information will flow directly back into the Business One solution. And then the ability for them, just very quickly, if they want to have Customer One enabled and enabled for various different functions. So again, these small businesses can truly connect with their customers in a digital way. So that's the kind of setup, and that kind of gives you an idea of how simple it is for somebody to really get up and running with Enterprise itself. And again, all of the various different modules are available. We have our 360 screen here where we can view all of the various different transactions. You can see here we have Shopify turned on, and what I can do here is see all of the transactions that are coming through from my Shopify store. Just to give you an idea, this is my Shopify store here. I'll just go back to our home screen. And we've created a very simple Shopify experience with different products presented. And what we did here was simply go in to Enterprise into the stock screen and tick a button and say apply. And the minute we did that, those products appeared in Shopify. And then in the Shopify experience, we've added images to those. And the minute somebody comes through to buy a keyboard from us and we add it to the cart and we process that through Shopify here using the checkout, it automatically creates a transaction back in Enterprise and in the SAP Business One database. So you actually have the fully integrated experience happening in a very simplified way. And just to show you here, this is the Shopify experience as the transactions come through. We can, and if there's any closed, the meaning behind this is that I can go in here and tick this button and approve these orders into my system because I maybe want to manually create the transactions. And what it will do is create an invoice and a receipt allocated against each other directly in Enterprise and SAP. We can also then deliver those products because it's creating a reserve invoice transaction in SAP. So we flipped the process from order delivery to invoice to reserve invoice and delivery. And once we've delivered it, then the transaction is deemed closed and we can see that it's all completed. So that's my Shopify experience now as part of the overall 360 view. We have the partners, the ability to see our partners, as we all know, but we've also built an Excel template that allows the customer to import those the customers through Excel directly into Enterprise and then on into Business One as well. We have the sales module, again, showing the ability to manage my pipeline, something that's very important for small businesses. And I guess when you start thinking about particular types of businesses, if we take small IT companies where they're doing a lot of back-to-back transactions for servers and PCs, they're also doing a lot of service work with engineers on the road. This is the ideal solution for them because not only have we got the ability for them to track their pipeline and manage their quotations and orders, they can also do things like reoccurring transactions, where if they're in an order, for example, and they've booked a maintenance contract with a particular customer, they can drill in on that particular order and just make it a reoccurring transaction and say that every month or every year on a particular month, on a particular date, we're going to make this transaction reoccur. And that becomes a very powerful tool for them because it manages that whole process, which is typically being done for them in a spreadsheet. So a couple of other things just to show, we have the ability to order delivery to invoice, for example, the transaction with somebody else where it will send it to them. And this little I button here relates to customer one. And by ticking this on or ticking it off, it will just show it to the customer through the portal. So customer one has the ability to display information to the end user at a transaction by transaction level where you've got control over that. So that gives you a little bit of an insight into the quote and ordering process. And then, as you know, we have both service management and delivery planning. So we have the full scheduling solution for service calls, and we have the delivery solution as well. And I guess it's important to note that with the service side of it, we have the Outlook integration. So if a customer is using Outlook, they can copy and create service calls directly from Outlook straight into Enterprise and Business One. And obviously on the mobile app, you can create service calls directly from that solution as well. So the scheduler works very much the same as it does for service and delivery, the difference being that we have the different objects. So we have the service calls here and we're scheduling them against particular employees. And then again in delivery, we have the same concept of scheduling sales orders or deliveries to a particular van driver for them to deliver on a given day. So that gives you a little idea around the logistics planning side of the solution as well. Again, the user's getting all of this functionality for that low price point of €49. On the expenses side, it's one of our most popular solutions. The user gets the full expense experience capture on the mobile app for them to be able to view and edit their own expenses here, to be able to go in and review expenses that they might be approving for different users. And like all the best demos, my data isn't complete here. We have the ability to analyze the expenses through the All Expenses tab, and then obviously post those through into the general ledger using the service purchase invoice function in Enterprise. And then they also get the ability to manage procurement, so they can do purchase requests and purchase orders. They can copy those through to goods receipt POs, and they can also approve those transactions on email. So as a small business owner who's very much keen to look at how they manage their procurement, their users can create these purchase orders either through a mobile app or through the browser and receive an email where they can decide to approve or not approve that transaction. And in some instances in these small businesses, holding that control over your procurement can really, really improve your cash flow. So again, recognizing that these users are out in the field all the time, it's very important that they're able to stay in touch with their business, and this is how we can manage that for them through this procurement process. On the stock side, we're again leveraging the SAP stock functionality, so we can see what's on hand, what's available, the quantity on order, etc., etc. And we've got the multiple price lists built into the solution too. And I mentioned earlier how simple it is to present a product to Shopify. You can see here the Shopify logo is turned on for certain products. What we can actually do is simply tick these buttons here and go down the bottom and just add them directly to my Shopify account. Or I can remove them if I want to in the same way by ticking and clicking remove. And once they're presented up there, they're now ready to process online and enable that customer to have a true omni-channel experience. On the finance module, we have the ability for us to see various different transactions. So we can create sales invoices, credit notes, manage our incoming payments, purchase invoices, credit notes, and outgoing payments, manage journal entries here as well. And we also have our finance reporting and our age, debtor, and creditor. But up the top here, you'll notice some other tabs. So just to show you on the billing side, we can go in here and select any objects we want, whether it be orders or deliveries. And we can tick these transactions, and you'll see this consolidate button appeared because Acquian Systems had 2 orders that we want to copy to the next transaction. So if I click consolidate, it will merge the lines of these transactions onto one transaction in Enterprise and SAP. So I can decide to re-email these transactions, so it's like a batch email solution for these different re-email these documents to these customers, so we can effectively batch email our transactions to the customer, or we can copy them to a delivery or directly to an invoice. And you can see here, if I select quotes, I can batch copy to orders, to deliveries, and to invoices. So I can go to the next transaction in the series, or I can copy it all the way through from a quote to an invoice if I wanted to. And I can do that with orders and deliveries. So we've got this nice consolidated billing engine going on here for these small businesses as well. And then on the bank side, we have the bank reconciliation. So we have the ability to see all of the various different nominal account codes, and then we can create a new consolidation if we want to, and we can also view historical reconciliations if we've done any as well. So again, the ability to create, very much like you can in Business One, create the various different transactions and create new consolidations like you'd expect. In the finance module then, in the finance reports, we have our chart of accounts. So you can see here all of the various different chart of accounts that we've got. And this is based on a simplified version of the normal chart of accounts presented by SAP. So what we're trying to do here is give the small business owner an out-of-the-box simplified chart of accounts that they can then add accounts to if they want to. They have their trial balance here, and then most importantly for these businesses, we have the profit and loss. So what you can see here is their turnover and their cost of sales at a glance. We can see, we can filter that by date range here if we wish, and then we can see all of the various different nominal account codes. So we've got, for example, our gross sales account and our sales revenue account here. And if I drill in on those, for example, I have the ability to drill down and look at the transactions from the profit and loss that are posted within that period. And then I also have the ability to drill right the way down to transaction level, which is something that is really beneficial for these small business owners. So the profit and loss is a real active tool for these small businesses on a day-to-day basis. And then we also have the balance sheet function where we're presenting them with a graph showing them the different makeup of the different elements of their balance sheet. And again, they can go in here and have a look at the transactions that are behind each one of these assets. And then we have the tax reporting for small businesses, again, all important, so that they can see the tax rate for each of these different tax amounts, and they can see the transactions that are relevant to each one of those rates. So when they want to query why their tax bill is a certain amount, they can do that through the interface here. And you can see how simple it is to do it. And because we're using the standard SAP SQL query to report this, we're able to do it for pretty much every localization. And last but not least is the aged debtors and creditors piece. And you know already that we have the finance app in the field where we can see our aged debtors and take credit card receipts or cash or check receipts directly from the field. But here we have our aged debtors and our creditors. And we can see, for example, that Norm Thompson owes a certain amount over 90 days. We can drill in on that and have a look at the transactions that make up that amount. But we can also go in here, for example, and re-email the invoice, because if we're working on our debtors, it might be something that the customer has queried. But we can also save a committed amount. So when we're engaged with the customer, we can actually go in here and tick the invoice that they've committed to pay, and we can save that committed amount back to our aged debtors. And if I refresh the screen now, which is happening for me, you can see that they've made a commitment, and they've also made a commitment to pay on a particular date. And that helps the user to start to manage their cash flow in a much more efficient way. So we can also look at doing that directly from here, not based on invoice amounts, but in a lot of instances in small businesses, they're not paying the exact invoice amount, they're only paying a particular amount. And then they can actually enter in the committed amount here as well. So what we've tried to do is take the very best of SAP Business One, and we have simplified the user experience, given the small business what it is they want themselves, and delivered it in a low-touch services and truly scalable way. So that really is an end-to-end kind of review of Enterpryze Mobile One, the mini ERP solution powered by SAP Business One. So that is the end of today's presentation. Thank you very much to everybody for coming along. It's been my pleasure. And again, look forward to engaging with you on this further in the future. All the best. Thank you.